Well, it's great to be on the Columbia campus to have our annual June meeting. As you may have heard in the session that we spent a considerable amount of time with financial matters, but also in our ongoing year of the student. We today had reports on the system trying to remove bottlenecks to completion of our students towards their graduation. And we hope that we're making good progress in identifying those bottlenecks and also removing them.
I also had the opportunity to cover the annual State of the University discussion where I described all-time highs in terms of graduates at 10,400, all-time highs in terms of student credit hours delivered, all-time highs in terms of average ACT per student. And earlier in the fiscal year, I also talked about all-time highs in terms of student population. We also have made considerable progress in attracting resources from the state, from a capital financing for maintenance and repair of almost $100 million of new buildings, which are called 50-50 projects, where we raised half the money and the state matched that half. That was another $30 million from the state. So the combination of those new buildings and the maintenance and repair on existing buildings, we're now touching over 500,000 square feet, and 42% of our student population gets to take advantage of these new classrooms, new labs, and new buildings that are being built. It also gives us the capacity necessary to support the growth objectives that we're seeing across our 4 campuses. So those were the topics that we discussed. We also went through budgets, both operating and capital, and also closed it off with a conversation about the concept called Missouri Promise, which would be scholarship assistance for or tuition offset and fee offset for those students that are graduating high school with a 3.0 or greater. So that was the remarks that I covered. I'd like to open it up for questions.
You talked about in your talk about that you were surprised that you actually got 50-50 money. But when the bill was being proposed a few years ago, you thought, well, this is cute, but we're never going to get any of this. What has changed? What is the university or COFI done that has changed how it's happened, or were you just wrong?
Well, Rudy, I was concerned about the viability of that statute that was signed. The reason why I was concerned about the viability is if you look backwards, and unfortunately sometimes I make the mistake of looking at the rearview mirror versus looking through the windshield, but looking backwards when you hadn't had any capital funding for over 10 years, and the language of the statute said may, the state may, not will, may match the funding, and I just felt like when language says may, and the prerogative is not to fund, and based on where we were from a state standpoint back in 2012, I just felt the likelihood of it actually being funded was low. It was nice to have, and I was appreciative of having it, but I just didn't think it would happen. So what changed my mind was when you started to have conversations with leaders about the need for new buildings, as well as the donors, both business and individuals that made those donations, when they exerted their influence on not only am I going to fund it, state, I expect you to step up and fund it as well. When they started to influence legislation and priorities, and many of those have great relationships with political leaders, then I saw the power of industry, the state, and higher education coming together to solve a common problem. And when those 3 things started to click, then I became a believer, and I couldn't be happier for the collaboration and teamwork that took place between industry, the state, and higher education in getting these funded. Other questions? Any questions on the phone? Thank you very much.
Thank you.